So, Real Housewives of New Jersey happened, the reunion, season 13, the season's still going. But the season 13 reunion wrapped on Thursday, and according to all the TI gathered from page 6 of All About the Real Housewives, we're in for one roller coaster of a reunion. Now, according to page 6, Teresa was in rare form, cussing up a storm, and was ready to go in on her brother Joe, his wife Melissa Gorga, and frenemy Margaret Josephs, who at one point Giudice called an effing whore. Sources claim that Teresa seemed angry and moderator Andy Cohen was irritated with his favorite Jersey housewife the entire time. It should also be pointed out that Teresa became unhinged and uncontrollable when the topic of her family came up, which she should have been prepared for, being that this entire franchise is centered around her family dynamics. Speaking of which, I saw that Kim D and David Yontef is doing they did a little special. I guess that they rented out some place and had the fans up in there watching the videos. Of watching them, they were doing like a live podcast or whatever the case was, and she was spilling tea about the Giudices and everything that's going on with the Housewives. Kim D, y'all know, used to be on the Housewives back in the day, and now she's got a podcast where on Behind the Velvet Rope, where she basically just spills a whole bunch of stuff about the Housewives and things she's heard and all this other stuff, and it's quite entertaining, I'll say. Now back to this. This is the first time Teresa, Melissa Gorga, and Joe Gorga were going to see each other in person, the insider points out, emphasizing the trio's long history of deep-rooted family issues. Now, this is the first time they're all being seen together because I believe that Joe and Melissa did not... after the show wrapped, they haven't been mingling and been seen with each other. Ahead of the 10th taping, Giudice, who's 50, admitted that she was somewhat apprehensive about seeing her brother and his wife, who were close with Margaret Josephs, as their rocky relationship has reached an all-time low in recent months. It said Giudice's rapport with the Gorgas, who are both 44, is expected to worsen in the upcoming final episode of the season when they opted not to show up to Teresa's wedding to Louis Ruelas. Now, back in February, gossip site All About the Real Housewives released text messages from Louis extending an olive branch to the Gorgas off camera to show up to Teresa's 50th birthday party, which Melissa was basically like, they respectfully declined, they weren't going to come. Louis like, let's work everything out. We don't need cameras. It's off camera, this and the third. But I guess in a way, they were probably feeling like, well, why are you only hitting us up when there's like special occasions, this and the other? Maybe they felt that, you know what, let's meet up on a different set of situations, meaning, on a regular day. Like, let's meet up on a Tuesday. Louis, Teresa, Melissa, and Joe meet up at a place, a mutual place. Or maybe it could just be Teresa and Melissa. Meet up somewhere, have a smoothie or something somewhere, and talk shit out. But the thing is, Teresa and Joe both have hard heads and soft behinds. They don't want to hear nothing. They think they know everything. They both come at a place of hurt. They both are combative, and nothing ever gets done. Maybe they both need to be in therapy together. But I've been seeing on the show, I don't know if it's real or not, because reality TV, Teresa's been in therapy and trying to be a better person. We do see at times Louis has been in her ear trying to make her come across as a better human being. But when it comes to Joe, he's always like shutting shit down or pointing fingers at his sister and this sort of thing. So it's always this back and forth tit for tat with both of them. We're not going to only just make it like Teresa's innocent and Melissa and Joe are like the worst of the worst. They're both equally to blame in a lot of this. And it comes from a lot of hurt that has stemmed from their childhood that's come over to their adulthood. Teresa has been someone who I think, in my opinion, was happy to have something over on her brother, which was the Real Housewives of New Jersey, because Teresa's family was a part of this. It was about the Manzos. It was about Caroline's, Jacqueline Larita, who I'm going to talk about in a second, because she was involved in the reunion as well. It was Jacqueline Larita because Jacqueline's married to Caroline's brother. So it was that whole family dynamic. Teresa was a friend brought into the show because of her relationship with Jackie and the Manzos and all that other stuff. Teresa became the breakout star. Then you had Danielle Staub, whore ass, and all that mess. Teresa became the big star because she flipped the table, 19 times engaged, prostitution whore, that sort of thing. became a household name from that. So then we had to interject other parts of thing of Teresa in it. So then once the Manzos left and all this stuff, Teresa became, the Nene Leakes of the franchise, and or everybody has their of the franchise. New York didn't start out with Bethany, but it became Bethany. So, then of course, because of the whole thing that happened at Melissa's christening, where Teresa and Joe were not in a good place at the time. They were, their family relationship, brother simulation was on the rocks. I don't know what for. We never know what it is because we can never get a straight answer, or they never really address it. Let me know in the comments for those of you when I cut this up later on and y'all watch it back. Let me know if y'all know the true tea about why Teresa and Joe's issues are why they are the way they are, why they don't get along. But I think it was Teresa was happy to have this show over her brother. Maybe her brother was jealous and envious of the fact that his sister's this big reality star. He wanted a piece of that. So at the christening, he's being rude and disrespectful. Teresa was there, kissed the baby. I think was it Gino? I don't remember. But anyway, so she was at the baby, Melissa and Joe's christening. And then there was a thing there where they weren't really getting along at the christening. Then over the years, we've seen like Joe and Joe Gorga and Joe Giudice were fighting. It was just a whole family thing, but I don't never really know what the root is. So then it was about that they went behind their back and got on the show. But what I think is that producers saw the dynamic between them and thought that would be ratings gold. So they went behind Teresa back and was like, you know what? Let's hit up the Gorgons and see if they want to be a part of the show. And because they saw this as an opportunity to be famous and to make some money and they were going to come on this show with Teresa. And I think Teresa was pissed. So I think it was all Bravo being messy because they're like, oh, the Jersey franchise is based around family. Let's bring them on and see what can come out of this. And there's really been no resolution for the 12 years they've been doing the show together. I think it's 12 years. So anyway, back to the other story. I just wanted to break all that down. So now, I already told about the whole 50th birthday party. So the site also exclusively revealed that former housewife Jacqueline Larita was brought up at the reunion. And at one point, Teresa walks off stage before telling her brother in Italian that he broke her heart. The reunion was chaotic. There was a point that Jacqueline Larita gets brought up, and Teresa Giudice reveals that Jackie told her that Joe Gorga would speak to Joe Giudice's ex-partner, and he is part of the reason that Joe Giudice went to jail. Jacqueline also confirmed to Teresa that they reunited. When they reunited, that Joe Gorga spoke about Joe Giudice's business partner who was suing Teresa and Joe Giudice at the time. Andy had asked Teresa if she believed what Jacqueline was saying. Teresa told Andy that she did because her brother hated Joe and that maybe he didn't mean to hurt Teresa, but he hated Joe and that's why he did it. And you want to know something? I actually believe that. I do believe that Joe Gorga was probably trying to be messy and get something on Joe Giudice because he probably felt like Joe Giudice was no good for his sister. Like a lot of people believe Louis is no good for Teresa. And based on some of the evidence we've seen, I do believe that she just got her another piece of shit for her husband. Because we've seen the two sides of him on the show. I'm still weird about him wearing the father's, Teresa's father's pajamas to bed to make the girls feel safe at night. I don't know where the hell that came from, but apparently that came out of his mouth and his head. Now, Joe denied the allegation, saying that he loves Joe. I don't believe that. I believe you like him now because I believe he was off in Italy, but I heard now, I think he lives in the Bahamas or Jamaica or somewhere. It's also being reported that when Teresa walked up stage in tears, that her brother Joe did not go after his sister to console her. Hold on. Sources are also saying that Andy 54 could barely get in a word during the reunion, stating, quote, Melissa Gorga and Teresa Giudice wouldn't stop going at each other. Even when the segment was about another housewife, it always came back to Melissa and Teresa. Tensions were also high because Melissa Gorga and Teresa Giudice have not spoken or seen each other since the beginning of August. Andy didn't even ask any questions about the fight that broke out with Jennifer Aiden and Melissa and Joe Gorga at BravoCon. Yeah, I don't know how he's missing all this stuff. Like, there's so many things that he could be asking, and he's missing out. Andy missed out on so much stuff, and this is why I said he got to step away from these damn reunions. He is just too close to these women and just be missing stuff to bring up. Now, another thing that happened, Joe Gorga claimed that Dolores' son, Frank Catania Jr., you know I love me some Frankie, honey, called him to talk smack about Louis after working with him. Now, during the reunion taping, Joe Gorga accuses little Frankie of calling him to talk poorly of Louis and working with him, insinuating that Louis did something wrong to Frankie when he worked for his company. Frankie's mother, Dolores Catania, couldn't believe what she was hearing and immediately shut down Gorga's claims, saying Dolores was pissed. She knows for a fact that little Frankie would never call Joe Gorga. Couldn't believe Joe Gorga was dragging her son. She denied it right away and told Joe Gorga not to drag her son into this mess, especially when it's not true. Joe Gorga didn't fight back and stopped talking about it after Dolores denied it. All About the Real Housewives did reach out to Frankie after the accusations was brought up at the reunion taping, and here's what he told the site. He said, and I quote, I never complained to about Lou to Joe. Like I said before, I had a great experience working at his RE firm, and it allowed me to pivot into a great position. I really like Lou and Joe. I really don't even know why I would be brought up either, but understand lots of bad blood. So tempers flaring. Now, new housewife Jen Fessler barely spoke during the reunion, which makes me think she won't be back next season. Jackie Goldschneider, who was demoted to friend of this season, barely spoke either. And when she did, it was about her eating disorder, which, in my opinion, is so last season. Now, I'm not trying to look down on the fact of her eating disorder, because I know that's a constant battle you have to deal with. But if you have nothing else to bring up besides the eating disorder, then why are you here? The only thing that I know, like, Jackie had going for her this season since she was demoted, she kept fighting with Danielle Cabral throughout the season about the thing with her brother and not being honest about what may have happened between them. But it's like, I'm a new chick or whatever. I don't know you, bitch. I don't need to tell you all my business. Now, speaking of Danielle Cabral, she definitely held her own and brought the Staten Island to Manhattan where they filmed the reunion. Jennifer Aiden and new housewife Rachel Fuda got into it over their botched nose jobs, but the ladies ended up on good terms at the end of the segment. As for where things stand between Melissa and Teresa, sources say Giudice is done with her sister-in-law. They're 100% done. Teresa has never went in on Melissa Gorga like she did at this reunion, and it was because then when they had problems, Teresa's parents were alive and she wanted to keep the peace and not escalate it when things were already bad. With Teresa's parents gone, she is tired of the lies and narrative being controlled by Melissa Gorga at her expense. Teresa told Andy that she is 100% done with Melissa and Joe Gorga, but wishes them well. Child, like I said, this is a lot. I can't wait for the season, whenever the reunion is going to air. I do hope they bring up the rumors regarding Margaret allegedly being the one to spread the rumor about Melissa cheating on Joe in the car with the actor. I think it was a waiter, actor, something. I don't know, waiters, actors. Because I didn't hear anything about this, but according to All About the Housewives, All About the Real Housewives, they said that, Gentry and Dolores were all loyal to each other. Frank finally picked a side, and it's Joe Gorgas, meaning Frank Sr. Andy Cohen spoke to Gia, who's at Coachella, because Joe Gorgas said Gia called him and said, leave Melissa. Gia denies this and swears on her no-no's life. Now, if you don't know what a no-no is, that's her grandfather. Dina's husband confirmed that he never called Joe Gorga about Louis or anything. Teresa revealed that Jacqueline told her that Melissa and Joe would tell her everything about her legal issues. Jacqueline told Teresa that Joe used to call her that he would speak to Joe Giudice's ex. Oh, we talked about that already. What else? Oh, Joe told Annie that he doesn't regret not going to Tree's wedding. But wasn't there an article that he did months ago where he stated that he did regret going to Teresa's wedding? So he flip-flops. And what I would have hoped that somebody would have brought up in the reunion that you did say this, so why are you lying? But they don't catch shit like that. This is why I said I don't know if Andy's pulling things together or his intern's a little slow. But hopefully they do bring this up. All the guys went in on Louis, minus Bill, Paulie, and Nate. Frank went the hardest. They all feel like Louis ran a smear campaign on them. Frank and Joe Gorga are pitching their own show. No, we don't need that. Sorry. Rachel and Jennifer Aiden get into it over their noses. Teresa's done. Danielle and Rachel make peace. Danielle was intense at the reunion. Oh, and Jen Aiden calls Rachel out for Bravo level 1, 2, 3, 4 instant count. So there's a lot that's going to be covered at this reunion. I'm actually looking forward to it. There's a lot of drama, and I have to say this to end this story because I know this is a long one, but it's a lot that was covered. And you know these reunions usually go 3 or 4 parts, or mostly 3 parts max. If Teresa and Joe do not deal with this situation in this reunion, which I have a feeling they're not, we need to cut ties with this. Joe and Melissa needs to go their separate, go off and do whatever. Because if you're not gonna, if the only storylines you have is the fight with your sister, but we don't know anything about your kids, we don't know what's going on with your businesses, we don't see what's going on with that new house, which I've seen the pictures and stuff online that y'all keep trying to change up stuff because people are criticizing how your house looks, the one you just bought in Franklin Lakes. If y'all don't have, if y'all can't come to a resolution, then we need to move on. This has been a long, drawn out story that has been going on for too freaking long. I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of hearing about it. I'm tired of seeing it playing out on the reality show. It's getting tired. And then the fact that people on social media keep going back and forth. Team Teresa, Team Melissa, this one's a liar, that one's a liar. And it's like, how do you even know? These are people who don't even know these people. But I'm going by what I know from the people who do know these people when I hear the stories, especially from Kim D. Because I'm like, Kim D knows all the tea, what's going on over in Jersey. So I'm going to take her word over everybody else's. Based on what they said in on the Behind the Velvet Rope podcast. So I don't know. I just feel like I'm just tired of this whole thing. It's unfortunate that you have a family dynamic that, a brother and a sister can't get along. But if y'all can't get along, you got to do like a lot of siblings do. Like the whole thing with Natasha and Tamika. Cut your ties with them.